but I wanted to bring up your article that you did with Max Blumenthal just recently that I read. And personally, and this is my opinion, I think it's award-winning. But here's the headline for our audience, so you can see it in the link. And we also, Kit, have your links so they can read your work below. So we're on YouTube, Rockfin. Sometimes my YouTube gets taken down. Like I had all my videos taken down 2 weeks ago, and then I got them all back up except one on censorship. Ironically, that appeal didn't go through. So a lot of us are having trouble here in the States getting YouTube. Yeah. But so it kind of links into the subject matter of the article. So could you talk a little bit about this work that you did, which is just stunning. And actually this article I've read twice. I really appreciate your work, Kit, and Max Blumenthal's. Could you talk a little bit about this and kind of lay it out for our listeners who may not be familiar with it?
Sorry. Yeah, well, no, thank you very much. It's enormously kind of you to say. It's more praise than I'm used to and more than I deserve, I think. But in many ways, I mean, essentially, we at the Grayzone came into possession of a number of leaked emails that were sent to and from Paul Mason. Now, I'm not sure if your viewers are familiar with him. If not, then they're quite fortunate, I'd say. I mean, he's this very prominent British left-wing, well, ostensibly left-wing journalist who was a kind of veteran BBC and Channel 4 reporter, very prominent, and but then he quit to kind of enter activism, like kind of full time, because you have to be neutral if in theory if you work for major broadcasters, although in practice that's never the case. And so he became a very prominent supporter of Syriza, which was this upstart left-wing party in Greece, and Jeremy Corbyn, when Jeremy Corbyn became Labour leader in 2015. And then, he seems to have taken rather a different path recently, and particularly since the war in Ukraine broke out. He has been an aggressive tub thumper for direct NATO intervention, has viciously attacked anti-war, anti-imperialist left-wing journalists, activists who've been opposed to arming Ukraine or any further escalation of a conflict that could well turn nuclear. And yes, it's a very, very fraught, sensitive issue. Yeah, I mean, he's specifically gone after the Stop the War movement in the UK, and indeed, Jeremy Corbyn and his supporters, which is a very strange kind of volte-face, as it were. But I think that he created a lot of bad blood on the British left. So when we uncovered these emails, which were documented how he was on behalf of British intelligence, it seems, creating maps of Russian influence in Britain, which included the Young Socialist Alliance, Mint Press, Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, who's a former current Labour MP, and former prominent Corbynite shadow cabinet member. And so I think that people weren't actually that surprised. They were quite shocked and quite clearly. Yeah. I mean, what Max and I laid out in the article, and our subsequent reporting just kind of furthers this interpretation. It just seems very clear that he was attempting. I mean, he was attempting to engage in highly undemocratic, underhand, just quite sleazy activities in order to try and deplatform and financially cripple the Grayzone on the basis that he believed it on the basis of nothing, to be a Russian and Chinese influence operation, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, he in collusion with a kind of long-standing British information, foreign office information warrior called Amal Khan, who's connected to the National Security Council in the UK, which is this kind of den of spies. They coordinated, attempted to put together a Victims of Grayzone Memorial Foundation type operation, where they reached out to people that we've been critical of in the past to put together a complaint that would be submitted to official bodies in the hope that the Grayzone would be officially investigated and action of some kind would be taken against us. I mean, it was very harebrained because quite what British authorities can do about a website based in the US, none of whose contributors are based in Britain. It was let me interrupt you 1 second.
You say that, but what came to mind immediately for me was Julian Assange. I mean, Julian Assange is Australian, and he's not from the US, nor I think he's visited once. and yet he's in Belmarsh prison, and now he's going to be extradited by the US under the Espionage Act. So, I mean, I don't want to interrupt you too much here, but I just want to, can you talk a little bit about how this might affect English journalists or any journalist, Irish, whatever, Great Britain, Scottish, in general, Western journalists, this kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I think that yes. I mean, the extradition of Julian Assange effectively sets the precedent that Washington has a global legal remit, and its national laws apply to citizens of other countries operating overseas. I mean, it's absolutely terrifying precedent. The significance of which has just been entirely ignored in the mainstream, save for the occasional condemnation from a human rights or kind of a journalist advocacy organization. And it's absolutely really shocking. I mean, we had cease and desist orders dispatched to us from lawyers acting on behalf of an academic called Emma Bryant, who's a kind of state-connected, quote unquote, anti-disinformation warrior and expert on fake news and stuff, and she was openly threatening myself and the Grayzone, and Mint Press also received the same communication, as did Novara Media in the UK. I mean, she's US based at the moment, so again, that kind of seems to be based on the precedent that that we are subject to, that I would be subject to US legislation despite not being in the US. I mean, we kind of laughed it off, although it does seem to have had a chilling effect. And Paul Mason as well has threatened legal action against smaller publications that have published articles reporting on our reporting. So I mean, yeah, it does. I mean, it's incredible as well, because Mason makes a lot, as do his contacts in British intelligence, of the grave threat to democracy and free speech and the public mind posed by quote unquote Russian propaganda, or indeed outlets like the Grayzone, which are entirely unconnected to Russia, but do tend to write critically on Western imperialism. It's just incredible that his response to dissenting opinions is, right, well, let's get the intelligence services involved and ruin these people. Let's publicly embarrass them. Let's publish all of let's get all of this really damaging insider info on them and their operation, and then publish it and then ruin them. It's not, oh well, why don't we debate them, or publish some form of rebuttal? And it's like, the Aaron Mate has repeatedly, before these emails were released, repeatedly invited Mason to debate him, and he never did. And there's a very striking excerpt in one of the emails where Mason kind of laments the emergence of an anti-imperialist identity, which he feels that will spread across the left like wildfire, and to which liberalism will have no response. And I think that's a lot more revealing than he intended. Is that fundamentally, the established liberal narratives around stuff such as the conflict in Ukraine is black and white, goodie versus baddie, just very basic, kind of almost like childish, and also very self-serving, flattering, narratives. That the West has this monopoly on decency and morality and civilization, and that our particular model is the highest aspiration of mankind, and therefore it should be exported abroad, one way or another. Whereas what the anti-imperialist position is, that our rights and freedoms and standard of living in the Western world have historically and continue to this day be based on exploitation, slaughter, and oppression abroad. And yes, liberalism has no response to that at all, which is why we get branded Assadists or Putin apologists for not buying into these binary, simplistic, and misleading narratives.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and generally, I don't know if you've noticed in the United States, but there's been a definite, the what's considered the Democrats, or what would be considered, I guess, and the equivalent would be like the Labor Party or whatever, but not the Tories, right? The Tories would be kind of equivalent to Republicans in the U.S. I'm making loose allegations, but loose analogies here. But what I was going to say is that, they've gone more and more to this more fascist, authoritative kind of stance that the Democratic Party, which was supposed to be for the working people, but actually they have quite a disdain for working people. Like there is no working party in the United States. There may be an active working party in Great Britain, but there definitely isn't in the United States. Like, there's no one looking out for workers.